Hello again. Today we're here to talk about the third stop, notice, and note reading signpost, Tough Questions. So hopefully you just went through the introductory video breaking down what a tough question is. And so you should know that when you spot a tough question in the text, stop and ask yourself, what does this question make me wonder about? And this video is an extension of the introductory video because we're going to be looking at examples today. And we're going to be taking those examples with excerpts from the novel A Long Walk to Water by Linda Sue Park. And if you're a little unfamiliar with the story, if you haven't read it before, here's a brief introduction. This is a story about what happens to an 11-year-old who lives in Sudan during a time in which rebels are raiding villages. In a scene early in the novel, 11-year-old Salva has become separated from the rest of his family after rebels have attacked his small Sudanese village, and now he's alone and scared and running. Please follow along with the story as I read. You can tell the content of the examples today is going to be a lot more heavy and not so lighthearted. So here we go. Be on the lookout for those tough questions. Salva lowered his head and ran. He ran until he could not run anymore. Then he walked for hours until the sun was nearly gone from the sky. Other people were walking too. There were so many of them that they couldn't all be from the school village. They must have come from the whole area. As Salva walked, the same thoughts kept going through his head in rhythm with his steps. Where are we going? Where is my family? When will I see them again? Okay, so I'm going to stop here because there are several tough questions. Where are we going? Where is my family? When will I see them again? Okay, now for an 11-year-old boy, these are obviously very painful questions that do not have an immediate answer. That's why they're tough questions instead of just random questions. Now, when an author shows me the difficult questions that a character is considering, I want to stop and think about those questions. They show me the conflicts, the problems that the character is worried about. I want to ask myself the anchor question for the Tough Questions signpost. What does this question make me wonder about? So as I think about Salva's difficult questions and ask myself what they make me wonder about, I wonder if I could have survived without knowing where my family was, or even if they were still alive. I have to wonder, too, how the people he's with will react. I mean, they're in desperate circumstances, too, so I wonder if they'll help, or if they'll just ignore the small child. I mean, they're trying to escape, too, and they might see Salva as nothing more than just another burden. They might turn their backs on him. Most of all, I wonder what he's going to have to do to survive this ordeal. And all this thinking comes from recognizing the tough questions the author includes and asking ourselves, what does this question make me wonder about? Okay, so let's read on. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead in the story to a point where Salva, who has now been on his own for a while, he finds a small group of people who are trying to survive. Now, as I read, be on the lookout for more tough questions. And if you spot one, or if you spot more, ask yourself the tough question signpost anchor question. What does this question make me wonder about? So let's continue. Sure enough, there were now 3 women giving water to the men on the ground. Like a miracle, the small amounts of water revived them. They were able to stagger to their feet and join the group as the walking continued. But their 5 dead companions were left behind. There were no tools with which to dig, and besides, burying the dead men would have taken too much time. Salva tried not to look as he walked past the bodies, but his eyes were drawn in their direction. He knew what would happen. Vultures would find the bodies and strip them of their rotting flesh until only the bones remained. He felt sick at the thought of those men, first dying in such a horrible way, and then having even their corpses ravaged. If he were older and stronger, would he have given water to those men? Or would he, like most of the group, have kept his water for himself? It was the group's third day in the desert. By sunset, they would be out of the desert, and after that, it would not be far to the Etang refugee camp in Ethiopia. Sorry, it's a very, very difficult passage to read, as you can tell. Now, obviously, the tough question is, would he have kept giving water to those men, or would he, like most of the group, have kept his water for himself? Now, when you spot such a question in any text, ask yourself, what does this question make me wonder about? So take a moment right now. I'd even like you to pause the video to jot down your thoughts and ask yourself what this question, this one right here, what would Salva have done? What does that make you wonder about? So take a moment, pause right here, and I'll see you in a second. Okay, so perhaps you're wondering about what it would be like to be that thirsty. I mean, you might have thought about what it would be like to have to watch people die and then just walk away, leaving them behind, unable to call someone to come and look after the dead. Maybe you connected this part of the text with, I know I did, scenes I remember from other natural disasters like Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, or from more recent earthquakes in Haiti or Japan. As you think about the tough questions that any author asks, keep going back to the anchor question, what does this question make me wonder about? If you do so, you'll keep coming up with more questions, which in this case will cause us to speculate on what Salva must do next. We might ask questions like, what kind of country is this place? Aren't there police trying to help? What do you do when the government is out to get you? Now, all of these things, they're great questions. Thinking about some of them helps us to imagine ourselves in this situation so we'll understand what's happening even better. Taking the time to think about the tough question helps put ourselves in the story, visualize what's happening, and imagine how the characters are feeling. So if we do that, we'll understand what Salva is going through. Okay, so let's read one more passage from this novel. In this scene, Salva is alone. You'll easily spot the tough question. I am alone now. I am all that is left of my family. His father, who had sent Salva to school, brought him treats like mangoes, trusted him to take care of the herd. His mother, always ready with food and milk and a soft hand to stroke Salva's head. His brothers and sisters, whom he had laughed with and played with and looked after. He would never see them again. How can I go on without them? But how can I not go on? They would want me to survive, to grow up and make something of myself, to honor their memories. Okay, so take a few moments now to think about the tough questions that you noticed and your thoughts about the anchor question to the signpost. What does this question make me wonder about? And you can see the questions are clearly right there. So pause again right here. Pause the video and jot down your thoughts about what you think. See you in a moment. Okay, now this is a very powerful scene. You may have wondered how each of us would do in the same circumstances. I know I was thinking about how I wouldn't be sure how I'd be able to go on or how I'd be able to keep on living in these circumstances. You might have been thinking about how hard it is to survive in this place we're reading about. Maybe you were a bit empathetic with Salva and you're thinking about how hard your life is, but how it seems like nothing compared to what Salva is facing and what Salva is going through. Perhaps you wondered about how some kids have to grow up so much faster than others, and how terrible and how horribly unfair that is. Perhaps you wondered about Salva's character and asked something like, what's in Salva's background that made him be this brave? Or maybe you even ask just something like, what if Salva had been a girl? Would this girl be as brave and courageous as Salva? How would she see the situation differently? So just spend another moment reflecting on all the thinking we've just done. Now, all these thoughts, they came from considering what the tough questions meant. Remember, the authors show us tough questions to give us insight into the struggle that a main character faces. When we see those tough questions, we should ask ourselves, what does this make me wonder about? Now, it's easy to read right past these tough questions because the author seldomly gives us an answer right there and then. Okay, they want us to stop and think about this stuff, and authors usually come back to those answers later in the story. But you know that what the author wants you to do is recognize these questions to show us what concerns the character. You should pause when you see these questions and ask yourself what the tough questions make you wonder about. When you understand the character's situation, you're better able to contemplate how you might react in similar circumstances. When you're able to do that, you will have a much deeper understanding of the conflicts presented. So, as you read in the future, or as you watch television or movies or something, or even think about your own life, be on the lookout for the Tough Questions Signpost. And when you spot one, be sure to ask, what does this question make me think about? Thanks so much, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video.